Did you know Jesus was crucified for you and I? The night that carried eternity, Jerusalem was glowing under the soft, golden flicker of thousands of oil lamps. An ancient city, breathing with the collective anticipation of a monumental festival. The city was alive in a way it only was once a year. Voices rising in a cacophony of different dialects. Feet moving hurriedly over the ancient cobblestones. And laughter echoing through the narrow, winding streets. It was the feast of Passover, the scent of roasted lamb, bitter herbs, and unleavened bread hung thick in the cool evening air. Families were gathering, reciting the ancient prayers and singing the Hallel Psalms. It was a time of deep remembrance, a time of joyous celebration, a memorial of deliverance when God rescued the Israelites from the iron grip of Egyptian slavery. But Hefe knew something the bustling city did. Not this night would be different. This night was the culmination of thousands of years of prophecy, the apex of divine history, the very moment for which the cosmos had been holding its breath since the fall of man in Eden. The blood of millions of Passover lambs had been spilled over the centuries, soaking the soil of Israel. Yet they were all merely shadows, temporary coverings pointing toward a singular, final reality inside a quiet, secluded upper room, tucked away from the chaotic noise of the city streets. Jesus Christ sat at a low table with his 12 closest friends. The atmosphere was incredibly heavy, completely unlike the hundreds of other meals they had shared on dusty hillsides, beside the crashing waves of the Sea of Galilee, or in the homes of repentant tax collectors. Was a profound, almost suffocating stillness in this room, almost like time itself was pausing, hesitating before the monumental weight of what was about to unfold. Jesus looked at these men. He had walked with them for 3 years. He knew their flaws, their pride, their hidden fears, and their extraordinary potential. He loved them to the very end for the deliberate calmness that defied the terror of the impending hours. Jesus reached out and picked up the unleavened breads. Intentionally, he broke it. The sharp crack of the bread breaking echoed in the silent room. "Take and eat. This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." The disciples exchanged uncertain, anxious glances. Confusion rested heavily on their faces. They were expecting a traditional Passover set, but Jesus was rewriting the liturgy. They remained silent, their minds struggling to comprehend the metaphor. Then he reached for the cup of wine, the third cup of the Passover meal. Known traditionally as the cup of redemption, he lifted it, the deep red liquid catching the dim light of the lamps. "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Those unprecedented words hung suspended in the stagnant air of the upper room. Blood, new covenant, poured out. They didn't understand yet. Their minds were still clouded with visions of an earthly kingdom, of Jesus overthrowing the Roman Empire and sitting on a literal throne in Jerusalem. But something deep within their spirits, an unsacable, haunting intuition, knew that this was not just a meal. This was a final farewell, a testament, a preparation for a sacrifice so immense that it would permanently alter the fabric of human existence. A betrayal already in motion. Jesus looked around the table, his compassionate, piercing eyes resting on each disciple. He saw Peter, who would soon crumble under pressure. Saw Thomas, who would demand physical proof. He saw John, who would stand weeping by the cross. Then his spirit became visibly troubled, and he said something that shattered the quiet intimacy of the moment like a hammer against glass. "Truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me." The room froze. It was as if all the oxygen had been instantly sucked out of the air. Every heartbeat felt louder, thudding violently against their ribs. The men stared at one another in absolute horror, doubting their own hearts before they doubted their brother's. Sorrow washed over them in agonizing waves. Each one began to ask, their voices trembling with genuine fear, "Lord, is it me?" "Surely not I, Lord." Imagine the sheer terror of that moment. Walking with him for 3 years, learning from his unparalleled wisdom, witnessing blind men receiving their sight, dead men walking out of tombs, storms being silenced with a single word, and yet confronting the terrifying reality that the human heart is so desperately wicked that they were still capable of betrayal. Judas Iscariot sat there too, Quiet still his face, an unreadable mask of forced innocence, but inside, his decision had already been made. 30 pieces of silver, the price of a slave, were already promised to him by the chief priest. The betrayal was not a sudden mistake. It was a calculated, cold-blooded transaction. Jesus knew. Jesus had always known. He knew when he washed Judas's feet earlier that evening, his hands gently wiping the dirt from the very feet that would soon run to betray him. He didn't expose him publicly to the wrath of Peter. He didn't call down fire to consume him. He didn't physically restrain him. Jesus simply looked at him and said, "What you are about to do, do quickly, because true love always allows choice. God does not force our allegiance, nor does he forcefully restrain our rebellion. He offers grace, but he leaves the door of free will wide open, even when it leads to his own heartbreak." Judas stood up, turned his back on the light of the world, and walked out into the night. The garden where destiny was chosen. After the meal was finished and a hymn was sung, they left the upper room and walked through the quiet, chilling night toward the Mount of Olives, specifically to a garden called Gethsemane, which translates fittingly to the olive press. The descent into the Kidron Valley was dark. The wind whispered mournfully through the ancient, gnarled olive trees. The full Passover moon cast long, eerie shadows across the rocky ground, making the trees look like twisted figures in agony. Jesus turned to his closest disciples, James and John. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and watch with me." Then he walked further into the deep shadows. Alone, he fell to the ground. Not a gentle kneeling, but a collapsing. The crushing weight of the universe was descending upon his shoulders. "Abba, Father, everything is possible for you. If it is possible, let this cup pass from me." His voice trembled in the darkness. Tears mixed with dirt. For the first time in all of eternity, we see the full, agonizing weight of the incarnation. We see the Son of God trembling. This was not merely a fear of physical pain. Jesus was not a coward dreading the Roman scourge or the iron nails. Many martyrs have gone to their death singing. No, the terror that caused Jesus to sweat drops of blood was an infinitely heavier, darker burden. It was the spiritual burden, the cup of God's holy wrath against sin, the sins of the entire world, every murder ever committed, every lie ever spoken, every act of abuse, every betrayal, every instance of arrogance, racism, and hatred. Every hidden, shameful struggle that you fight in the dark years mine, the unimaginable filth of human depravity across thousands of years of history. All of it was being placed onto the spotless, sinless Lamb of God. He who knew no sin was about to be made sin. For the first time in eternity, he would experience a rupture in his perfect fellowship with the Father. He would experience the agonizing reality of being forsaken to Pressurian. His body became so intense that his capillaries burst, mixing blood with his sweat, falling like heavy drops of the thirsty earth, gathering the resolve of eternal, unconditional love. He said the words that changed the trajectory of human history forever, "Yet not my will, but yours be done." That was the pivotal moment of the universe. Not the cross, not the nails, but the absolute, terrifying surrender in the garden. That's where the battle was won. That's where the victory began. When Jesus chose to drink the cup of our condemnation so that we could drink the cup of his salvation. The kiss that broke the night sudden. Violent flickering torches cut through the serene darkness of the olive grove. The heavy, rhythmic footsteps of soldiers approached. Weapons glimmered dangerously under the moonlight. The temple guards, armed with swords and clubs, marched into the sacred space, led by a familiar figure. At the front of the mob was Judas. He walked straight up to Jesus. There was no hesitation. He embraced him and kissed him. "Greetings, Rabbi." That kiss was not a gesture of affection. It was the ultimate weapon of betrayal. In the ancient world, a kiss from a disciple to a rabbi was a sign of profound respect and love. Judas weaponized love to deliver the Son of God to the slaughter. Imagine the agonizing sting of being betrayed by someone you trusted implicitly, someone you loved deeply, someone who ate at your table, slept beside you under the stars, and walked with you through every trial. Yet Jesus didn't step back in disgust. He looked at Judas, not with burning hatred, but with heartbreaking sorrow. "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" Jesus didn't fight the guards. When Peter impulsively drew his sword and slashed off the ear of the high priest's servant, Jesus immediately stopped the violence. He reached out his hand, touched the bleeding man, and healed him his final miracle before the cross, performed on an enemy coming to destroy him. He didn't call down the 12 legions of angels waiting at the edge of heaven, ready to obliterate Jerusalem at a single command, because his life was not being taken from him. He was freely laying it down. He gave himself up to the darkness so that the darkness could be defeated from the inside out. The trial without justice day bound his hands as if he were a dangerous criminal and dragged him roughly through the night. First to Annas, then into the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. It was an illegal trial, held in the dead of night, violating every law of Jewish jurisprudence. Voices rose in a chaotic, hateful frenzy. False witnesses stepped forward, their stories contradicting one another, stumbling over their own fabricated lies. Venomous accusations filled the grand room. Finally, the high priest demanded, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus replied, "You have said so, but I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest violently tore his clothes in theatrical outrage. "Blasphemy! Escrimed, why do we need any more witnesses? What is your verdict?" The crowd roared with bloodlust. "He is worthy of death." They spat their warm, foul saliva directly into the face of the creator of the universe. They blindfolded him. They struck him with closed fists. They mocked him relentlessly. "Prophesy to us, Messiah. Who hit you?" And through all the bruising, the spitting, the humiliation, and the hatred, he stayed perfectly silent. Like a lamb led to the slaughter, he opened not his mouth. He was silent, not because he was weak, not because he had no defense. He possessed the intellect that designed the cosmos. He could have dismantled their arguments with a single sentence. He was silent because he was in absolute control. He was silently absorbing the punishment we deserved. The fall of Peter, meanwhile. Outside in the chilly courtyard, Peter stood watching from a distance. He was trying desperately to stay close, but not too close. He wanted to be loyal, but self-preservation was taking over. He warmed his hands by a charcoal fire, surrounded by the enemy. A servant girl walked by, squinting at him in the firelight. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee?" she said. Sudden I see. Fear gripped his chest. Panic clouded his mind. "I don't know what you're talking about," he deflected, stepping away into the shadows. A little later, out by the gateway, another girl noticed him. This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. Peter swore an oath, his voice rising in panic. "I don't know the man." Our pase. The tension was unbearable. Finally, a group of bystanders cornered him. "Surely you are one of them. Your Galilean accent gives you away," Peter snapped. He began to call down curses upon himself, swearing vehemently, "I don't know the man." And at that exact moment, a rooster crowed, its sharp cry piercing the morning air. At that precise second, the doors of the courtyard opened. Jesus was being led out, and across the crowded, chaotic courtyard, the battered, bruised face of Jesus turned, and his eyes locked directly onto Peter. It wasn't a look of anger. It wasn't a look of, "I told you so." It was a look of immense, unbreakable love and profound sorrow. And in that moment, the full weight of reality hit Peter like a physical blow. Jesus had told him, "Just hours ago, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." Peter stumbled out of the courtyard, running blindly into the dark streets of Jerusalem. He fell to the ground, crying uncontrollably, broken into a million pieces, because sometimes the greatest, most agonizing pain in the human experience is realizing you completely failed the one you love when it mattered the most. Peter realized his own utter helplessness and the bankruptcy of his own self-confidence. Why didn't he stop it? Let's pause the narrative right here, because this is the real, burning question that every human heart must confront. Why didn't Jesus stop it? When they were tearing the flesh from his back with a Roman whip, why didn't he stop it? When they were weaving thick 2-inch thorns into a crown and smashing it into a scalp, why didn't he defend himself? When they were driving iron spikes through his wrists and feet, pinning him to rough, splintered wood to suffocate under the blazing Judean sun, why didn't he escape? He is God. He spoke the galaxies into existence. He could have ended the universe with a thought. So why? Because from the eternal perspective, from outside of time, he saw something infinitely bigger than the temporary pain of the cross. He saw you. He saw me. He looked down the corridors of time, through the century, through the millennia, and he saw your face. He saw your brokenness. He saw the moments you would weep in despair. He saw the sins that would entangle you and the shame that would try to destroy you. He knew the uncompromising law of divine justice, that the wages of sin is death. He knew that without a perfect sacrifice, there would be no forgiveness. We would be eternally separated from God. Without his unimaginable pain, there would be no healing for our souls. Without the horrific brutality of the cross, there would be absolutely no salvation. This was personal. This wasn't just a historical event that happened 2,000 years ago in a dusty Middle Eastern province. This wasn't just an inspiring story of a good teacher who became a martyr. This was deeply, overwhelmingly personal. He was betrayed in the dark so that you could be accepted into the light. He was falsely accused and condemned so that you could be completely forgiven and justified. He was brutally rejected by men so that you could be unconditionally loved by God. He wore a crown of thorns so that you could wear a crown of life. He was forsaken by the Father on that cross so that you would never, ever have to be alone. Every agonized step he took up the hill of gold, carrying that heavy timber upon his shredded back, was for you. The hidden truth. Most people miss. Many people know the historical facts about the crucifixion. They wear crosses as jewelry. They see it in paintings. They hear about it on holidays, but millions of people fundamentally misunderstand the core truth of this event. Jesus didn't just passively die. He actively chose to die. "No one takes my life from me," Jesus declared, "but I lay it down of my own accord." Every single agonizing moment, from the garden, to the trial, to the scourging, to the 6 hours suspended between heaven and earth, on the cross he possessed the supreme power to stop it. He could have come down from the cross at any second. The mocking crowds even yelled, "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross and save yourself." But he didn't, because if he had saved himself, he could not have saved you. What held Jesus Christ to that wooden cross? It was not the iron nails driven by Roman soldiers. It was not the authority of Pontius Pilate or the Roman Empire. It was not the screaming, bloodthirsty crowd. It was love. A relentless, furious, unyielding, eternal love for you. What this means for you today, this story is not just ancient literature meant to be passively heard. It is a living reality meant to be deeply felt, absorbed, and responded to. Because the reality of the cross stands at the center of history, demanding a response. It asks you the most important question you will ever face in your existence. What will you do with this kind of staggering love? Will you ignore it, treating it as just another religious fairy tale while you go about your busy life? Will you doubt it, letting cynicism and intellectual pride build walls around your heart? Or Will you accept it? Will you fall on your knees, recognizing that it was your sin that put him there, and his love that kept him there? Will you let his broken body and spilled blood become the healing for your broken soul? Questions for you. Don't skip this. Take a moment. Be completely honest with yourself right now. If you were one of the 12 disciples in that upper room and garden, would you have had the courage to stay? Or would human fear have caused you to run away into the night? Why do you think Jesus still chose to wash Judas's feet and speak to him with love, even knowing with absolute certainty that Judas was about to betray him to death? What does that teach us about how we should treat our enemies? Have you ever had a Peter moment? Have you ever denied something you truly believed in? Or compromised your deepest morals out of fear of what other people might think of you? When you strip away all the religious traditions, all the church buildings, and all the noise, do you truly, personally believe that Jesus Christ endured all of this specifically for you? Drop your honest answers and reflections in the comment section below. Let's have a real conversation about grace. Before you GOF, this story reminded you of the profound price that was paid for your freedom. And if it touched your heart today, like this to show your appreciation for his sacrifice, comment your thoughts and answer the questions above. Your testimony might just be what someone else needs to read today. Subscribe for more powerful faith-building stories and deep dives into the truth of the Word. Share this with your friends, your family, or someone who is struggling right now. Because someone out there is feeling worthless, unloved, and broken, and they desperately need this message today. They need to know that they are loved with an everlasting love. A love that was willing